Good afternoon. It is Friday, April 3rd. I'm your friendly local TikTok news anchor, JJ Hastings, and these are 5 stories you need to start your day. Sorry that we're a little late today. They've been doing construction outside all morning, and it doesn't seem to be letting up. So hopefully we can make it through our 5 top stories. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, in our first story, the Pentagon has confirmed that a U.S. Air Force F-15E Strike Eagle was downed by Iranian fire overnight in southwestern Iran. This marks the first confirmed combat loss of a manned U.S. aircraft since the conflict began 5 weeks ago. While one of the 2 crew members has been successfully covered by U.S. forces, a massive combat search and rescue operation is currently underway to locate that second airman. Now, Iranian state media has released wreckage photos specifically showing the vertical stabilizer that independent analysts have linked to the 494th Fighter Squadron. In a significant escalation of rhetoric, Iranian state-owned television, IRIB, is currently broadcasting a bounty offer to any civilians who can capture or locate the missing U.S. pilot. The loss of the F-15E complicates this administration's narrative of total air superiority over Iranian airspace, as well as the narrative that the U.S. is not facing losses in this war. Now, military experts suggest that if the second pilot is captured, it would give Tehran its most significant leverage yet, potentially forcing the U.S. into a high-risk ground recovery mission or a complex hostage negotiation. As this is a breaking story, we'll do my best to keep you informed. In our second story, in a direct retaliatory strike for U.S. and Israeli operations, Iranian missiles and drones struck critical infrastructure in Kuwait early this Friday morning. The attacks targeted the Mina al-Ahmadi oil refinery, one of the largest in the Middle East, and a primary water desalination plant. Shrapnel from a separate missile interception in the UAE also injured 12 people. Now, the strike on the desalination plant is particularly critical as Kuwait and much of the Gulf rely almost exclusively on processed seawater for drinking. This marks the 3rd time the refinery has been hit, but the intentional targeting of water infrastructure signals a shift toward a total war strategy aimed at making the region uninhabitable for those supporting U.S. military logistics. By hitting Kuwait, a country only 80 kilometers from its coastline, Iran is demonstrating that it can bypass regional air defenses to hit high-value economic targets at will. The move is widely seen by military experts as an attempt to force Gulf neighbors to withdraw their support for U.S. and Israeli staging operation. In our third story today, the Trump administration released its 2027 budget proposal this morning, requesting a staggering $1.5 trillion with a T dollars for the Department of Defense. This is the largest defense spending request in U.S. history, reflecting the massive costs of the ongoing war in the Middle East. To fund this increase, the proposal seeks a 10% cut to non-defense programs, including the Department of Education, HUD, and HHS, agencies which have already been hit under the big, beautiful bill and prior budget. Now, this budget includes a controversial shifting of responsibilities for social safety nets. During a White House event earlier this week, Trump stated that the federal government, quote, can't take care of daycare, Medicaid, or Medicare while fighting a war, arguing that these costs should be offloaded to state and local governments, while simultaneously telling U.S. citizens that the conflict in Iran is in fact not a war and will be wrapping up any day now. While the budget does not carry the force of law, it serves as a roadmap for the administration's legislative priorities. Critics in Congress have already signaled a fight, arguing that the proposed cuts would hollow out domestic infrastructure and healthcare during an period of record high energy costs and inflation. Moving on to UN news, a group of UN human rights experts has issued a formal condemnation of a new Israeli law that effectively allows for the death penalty to be applied solely to Palestinians. The experts describe the legislation adopted by the Knesset on March 30th as a manifest violation of international law and a grave escalation of discriminatory oppression. The law applies to individuals found guilty by military courts of, quote, acts of terrorism with intent to deny the existence of the state of Israel. However, because Israeli settlers in the same territories are tried under civil law where the death penalty does not apply, the UN warns that this creates a dual discriminatory legal system. The UN Special Rapporteur on Torture warned that the selective application of capital punishment based on ethnic or national grounds undermines the most basic guarantees of equality before the law. The experts have called on the Israeli Supreme Court to invalidate the legislation before it leads to irreversible harm. Now, again, this law would allow any individual of Palestinian descent without proper court proceedings to be accused of terrorism and then condemned to death. And in our final story today, a coalition including the ACLU and Protect Democracy has filed a federal lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security over a secret policy authorizing warrantless home entries. This lawsuit centers on a memo titled Utilizing Form I-205, which allegedly instructs ICE agents to use an administrative form instead of a judicial warrant to enter private residences. The plaintiffs, which include both U.S. citizens and immigrants, argue that the policy is a flagrant violation of the Fourth Amendment's protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. The complaint alleges that DHS strictly controlled access to the memo, requiring agents to review it only in the presence of supervisors to keep the policy hidden from the public. This legal challenge aims to secure a declaration that the policy is unconstitutional and to vacate the administrative procedures currently allowing these entries. If successful, it would significantly restrict the administration's ability to carry out domestic security sweeps and deportations without the necessary explicit judicial oversight. What news stories are you seeing today that have you worried or concerned? What do you have more questions about or comments? Please feel free to drop them below. As always, hit all the buttons as it really helps with this kind of content being throttled. And as always, I'm JJ Hastings, and I'll see you in the next one.